Yeah, you wanted to know that story. I was waiting for somebody to ask me why I pronounced the acronyms like the NRA. Now, this is not the National Rifle Association. Okay? Hi, Dylan. Thank you.
Yep.
Oh, squeeze through there. Okay. How many guys have ever seen the movie? How many times have you ever heard me say that?
Yeah, a million.
Die Hard. The original Die Hard with John McClane, played by Bruce Willis. Christmas movie. It's a Christmas movie. Takes place on Christmas Eve. Okay. Well, I get it from that movie. The bad guy, and if you haven't seen Die Hard, the original, you're missing out. Okay, this is one of the best action movies ever, right?
Yeah.
Right? It's a great movie. So anyhow, Nakatomi Towers in downtown Los Angeles. It's a terrorist or really a robbery of millions, hundreds of millions of dollars. And this, okay, I'm not going to tell the story. All right. Yeah, don't worry about it. It's all good. All right. The NRA, the National Industrial Recovery Act, is going to create the National Recovery Administration. Now, guys, this is Roosevelt's baby. This is the one. This is the thing that is going to bring us out of the Depression. All right? They are going to have parades, beauty pageants. They are going to sell this to the American people. Okay? The National Recovery Administration is going to really attempt to change the United States and how we do business. Okay? So every industry, and I have a couple examples here, the construction industry, the retail trade industry, every industry is going to get a code book with the blue eagle of the NRA on it, okay, which is the symbol of the NRA, the blue eagle. And what they're going to do is tell these businesses how many hours their employees can work, how much a minimum wage they have to pay them. They are going to tell these industries what goods they are allowed to produce, how much they're allowed to produce, and at what price they're able to sell the goods and services they provide. Now, this is the government doing this. Now, if businesses colluded as far as workers' pay, hours, production, and so forth, this would be called kind of a monopoly, okay? But the government is doing this. Now, do any of you have a family member that owns a business? Okay. What kind of business? A restaurant. Restaurant. Lumber. Okay. Restaurant? Wow. Need to get some information. Okay. I love to eat out. I love food. Can't tell. Okay. Let's go. The lumber? Lumber? Who was lumber? Raylan. Okay. Yeah, lumber. Star. Right? Okay. So, what if the government came in and told Star Lumber, okay, what type of, I mean, they do more than just lumber, right? I mean, they do a lot of things. Carpet. I mean, we bought carpet from them. All sorts of things. Okay. So, okay. I'm coming through here. All right. So they told the Star Lumber what they could sell, how much they could sell, how much they had to pay their employees. Now, you're only going to be allowed to sell lumber for residential. You're not going to be allowed to sell it for commercial. The government's going to decide who gets to sell it for commercial. Okay? and you're only going to be able to sell carpet and flooring for residential. Somebody else is going to do commercial. The government's going to decide that. Okay? How do you think your family would feel about that?
Well, considering the main business is commercial,
Yeah.
that'd be a big problem.
That could be a problem. Now, see, I didn't know that. But they're going to also tell them how much they have to pay their employees and how many hours they can work. Okay, now, does anybody have a problem with this? Restaurants. You're only going to be able to serve certain types of food, and this is what you're going to have to charge for it.
Sounds like socialism.
It sounds like more than that. More than that. Different. This is really, now I'm going to have you guys read an article on this tomorrow. Okay? This is similar to what is called fascism. Okay? Now, what fascism is basically a supercharged nationalistic statism where the government doesn't own the businesses. You still have private property because in communism you don't get private property, right? So you still have private ownership of business. It's just all directed from the state. And this is exactly what Mussolini was doing. This is exactly what Hitler was doing. Okay? Now, am I calling FDR Hitler? Absolutely not. Okay? Look, fascism was created by Mussolini. He coins the term fascism. All right? So in 1932, 33, fascism was not a dirty word. Heck, in the 20s, dictatorship wasn't a dirty word. Today it is. Fascism is an epithet that's thrown around left and right at people. Okay? But this is temporary fascism. This is the New Deal. Guys, what Hitler was doing in Germany, because he comes to power the same month of the same year as FDR. They both come to power in January of 1933, or March for FDR. They both come to power. So it's interesting to look at how Germany reacts to the Great Depression under Hitler and how the United States reacts. Guys, when Hitler, by 1936, had Germany out of the Depression, by 1936, people in this country were saying, hey, can we get some of that fascism over here? That seems to be working. Okay? Now, I'm going to go ahead and tell you guys that this whole program, the NRA, will be struck down as unconstitutional. I mean, the government just doesn't have these powers under our Constitution to do these sorts of things. Okay? But it is an attempt to try and bring us out of the Depression. If the government can control all these things, if you have really smart people, I guess, in government, and they can figure out how to make this work, well, this is what they were trying to do. Okay? This obviously is not economic freedom. Okay? So tomorrow, we're going to read an article about this. All right? In class. And it's going to be fun. Now, Section 7A of the NRA gave workers the right to organize into unions. Okay? So, what we saw in the early 20s, in lots of the 20s, was kind of an anti-union sentiment going on. After the summer of 1919 and so forth, we saw union membership decline. Well, we're starting to see a change here where the administration is going to try and support unions. All right? You have to be very careful because when you talk about unions, they're trying to get higher wages, right? Well, we're also trying to get the economy just to stabilize. All right? And if the unions go on strike and you have all types of issues there, it can cause some problems. Okay? So they kind of had to be careful about how this was done. Now, the person put in charge of the NRA is a former World War I general, Hugh Johnson. Okay? So not only is the government the one that's telling you what to do with your business, you got this guy doing it. Okay? And he's a general. So he's going to come in here and basically command that you follow what the government says. Okay? And he was difficult to work with. Okay? Now, the NRA favored large businesses. Okay? So with Star Lumber hey, we're going to give you plenty of residential work. You're going to be fine. You're a big business. We're going to take care of you. But small businesses felt like this was favoring the big businesses, all right? And there is a level of propaganda with this, okay, with this Blue Eagle, all right, which is another kind of characteristic of fascism. So, more on the NRA tomorrow, okay? Any questions over this? Yeah? No, it's not. Monopoly. This one here, just briefly talk about the minimum wage. As part of the NRA, minimum wages are struck down as unconstitutional. The Supreme Court says that the government does not have the power to tell you as an individual business owner how much you have to pay your employees. I mean, you guys know the Constitution a little bit, right? I mean, there's no real power in there to command what somebody pays somebody for their labor, okay? So in 1936, the minimum wage is struck down. So how in the world today in 2018 do we have a 725 minimum wage nationally? How's that possible if the Supreme Court said it's unconstitutional? Did we pass a constitutional amendment for a minimum wage? No, you would know that, wouldn't you? So the Constitution hasn't changed. The Supreme Court changed their mind. That's right. Are the same 9 judges that were on the court in 1936 still alive today and on the court? No, they're all dead. Okay. In fact, if you're paying close attention to your homework, you might have seen this. Okay. Saw this. Seen this? Okay. Let's talk about, later in the slides we'll have the conflict with the Supreme Court, but I thought I'd talk about it now since we have minimum wage up here. Okay. This is known as the switch in time. Anyone? Anyone? Saves 9. This is a newspaper headline from 1936. Okay, everybody in here knows there are 9 Supreme Court justices, right? And Roosevelt, by 1936, was really getting upset with the Supreme Court because they were striking down these things as unconstitutional. He's trying to get us out of the Depression, and he's mad. So he wants to pack the court. He wants to add 6 new justices. Who gets to choose Supreme Court justices? He does. Okay? So he wants to, hey, instead of having 9, let's have 15. And I'll get to pick them. Okay? Then he wants a retirement age. Because really, people over 70, they shouldn't be on the court. 2 of the 9, okay, were over the age of 70 and would have been forced to retire. Okay? So if we add 2 plus 6, okay, that equals 8. So how many new justices is FDR going to get to pick? 8. 8 of how many? Which is a majority. Which means FDR could control the Supreme Court. Does this not smack of one branch of government trying to take over another branch of government? Does this not smack of dictatorship? Now, when Congress finds out about this plan to pack the court, they're mad, and so are the people. But it scares These two guys that are going to be forced to retire. So, these two switch their vote on the minimum wage. And the newspaper headline the next day says, the switch in time saves 9. The switching of the vote by these two elderly members of the Supreme Court is going to stave off the court packing, so it doesn't take place. I don't think it would have taken place anyways. There's no way they would have let FDR do this. Okay? But it did scare these two guys into switching their votes, and that is how the minimum wage was born, with the switch in time, saving 9. There's an old wise tale phrase called a stitch in time saves 9. It's a play on words by the newspaper editor. Great. I can tell you're all really enthralled with that discussion. Are you going to be able to give me that on the test?
Yes.
Oh, geez. Okay, so it's on video. If you need to review that before the test, you'll have it explained. Okay? Wonderful. Okay, moving on. You were laughing a minute ago, Natalie. What did I do?
It's just history is boring. I'm not saying it's not important. It's not my favorite subject.
Okay.
Sorry.
It's okay.
You make it a little better. You do.
Oh, well, I appreciate
That's
that.
why I took this class.
I'm trying. The PWA.
Why? Can you answer that now?
Can you tell
Why?
the story now?
He didn't tell the story.
I didn't finish the story.
Well, finish it.
They say it.
Finish it now.
Yeah.
I want to know.
Hans, the bad guy,
Yeah.
right? They're trying to break into the safe, but it's got this electromagnetic thing around it where you can't break it, okay? And so the black guy that is like drilling into the safe and trying to open it, he goes to Hans. He goes, Hans, we can't crack this safe. We're going to need a miracle. And Hans says, you need a miracle? The FBI, okay, one of the protocols in a terrorist organization is to in a terrorist situation like this, is to shut down the power grid, which would shut down the electromagnetic safe thing. And so Hans says to the guy breaking the safe, you asked for a miracle. I give you the FBI. And then the safe opens. And there's like this smoke and like steam and stuff going off, and the music's playing in the background as all this millions, hundreds of millions of dollars, bonds and stuff come. Yeah. You got to watch the whole movie for that. Yeah. It's a great movie. I've seen it like 30 times. Yeah. They show it during Christmas. Die Hard. There's like 4 Die Hard movies. Die Hard 2, Die Hard with a Vengeance. Oh, they're all good. They're all good, but the first one's the best. The last one was pretty good. It's where his son's like working for the Russians or something. John McClane. He's a New York City cop. By himself fighting off all these terrorists. In Nakatomi Towers.
You think that he could at least get a partner?
He was at a Christmas party.
I'm saying like after so many times.
Yeah.
4 times.
Yeah, it wouldn't work.
It's like
yeah.
the whole,
There's one with Samuel L. Jackson in it. Die Hard 2, I think it is. These are great movies.
It's like the Taken movies, you know?
Yeah, yeah. It's a little different than that, but
You think Liam Neeson would learn that like people were going to take his daughter?
yes. And his
You
wife,
think that he would learn?
ex-wife.
Well, you think that he would learn and bring somebody along with him, like, hey, I'm going to run into a terrorist organization again.
Yes. Okay, so PWA. We did this with Hoover, remember? Building bridges, public works, government jobs, building things, right? This is going to be headed by Secretary of the Interior, Ickes. Okay. Sewers, schools, post office, hospitals, tunnels, housing projects, even aircraft carriers. The Yorktown and the Enterprise will be built by the PWA. Okay. Now, that's going to provide a lot of jobs for people that don't have them. Okay. Federal Emergency Relief Act, and this is what Hoover wouldn't do, and that is give money directly to the individual for nothing. Okay. So they're going to provide $500 million in direct assistance to the unemployed. This will be done through the states, so the federal government will give money to the states to give people. Okay, and I like to go back to this movie, Cinderella Man, which probably more of you have seen. Okay, good. Excellent film. But this boxer, Jim Braddock, and it's based on a true story, really falls on hard times. And he goes and gets help. And now, enemies of this called it the dole. What do we call this today? Welfare. Okay. Anybody that received it, people looked down on, called them a charity case, and this sort of thing. New Dealers felt that every citizen was entitled to help from the government. Okay. And in charge of this was Harry Hopkins, who we've talked about before. You don't have to write this part down. This is just like a infograph thing. But this is direct assistance. This is welfare. This is giving money to the poor for whatever they need it for, whether it be for housing, for food, clothing, pay the electric bill, that sort of thing. This is a big change for the federal government to do. It's not something they've ever done before. So we're starting to see our government not only grow in power and size and what they do. Does that make sense? Now, I know, Natalie, this New Deal stuff is dry. I will grant all of you that. Okay? And I could just skip over it. But here's the thing. This is an important change in who we are as a nation and what our government does. We are a nation of the people, right? Our government gets its power from the people. Okay, so it's important to understand what our government has become and how it has changed throughout history.
No, yeah, I said
Yeah.
it's important. It's just...
Yeah. I know, it's dry. Yeah. And I've got more acronyms on the next slide.
Great.
Yeah. Because government's going from this to this, okay? Are we good on this? Okay. So you have the PWA. Now, to make it confusing, we're going to get the WPA. So you have public works. Now you have works progress. I know, it's crazy. I don't want to know what happened with his background. I don't think I did that. But it happened somehow. Okay. Now this is going to be led by Harry Hopkins as well. Okay. As I said, he's a very important figure. Now look at this. Between 1935 and 1943, $11 billion to employ 8.5 million people. And they're going to build stuff too. You have public works building, but also this has kind of an entertainment flavor to it. It's got a little different feel than public works. Okay, so, I mean, we wouldn't want, we have some actors in here, don't we? Actors? Okay. We wouldn't want our actors and writers or musicians to have to work construction and get their hands dirty. Okay. So we're going to pay them to prepare guidebooks, decorate buildings, write plays, perform concerts. So instead of you going to a concert where you have to buy a ticket, okay, no, the government's going to pay the performer, and then everybody gets to go to the concert for free. Yeah, it's, kind of like Cuba. Sorry. I can't help myself. this is going to help people. Okay? How many guys have ever been down to Lawrence Dumont Stadium? Downtown. The baseballs. Ty, you never been down there? Diego?
I think I've been with them.
Ty, you've never been down to the stadium downtown?
No, I've never been to like a Wingnut stadium.
Have you been?
Yeah.
Okay. Is it boring, Natalie? Like this?
No.
Some people say it is. It's baseball, it's boring, right?
No, okay, then you have to watch it first.
It's a thinking man's sport. Okay. It's not like football where the object of the game is to rip the other guy's head off.
That's not the object.
In baseball, you have sacrifice.
You're just biased.
There is some robbery, some stealing. Okay? There's no clock. The defense has the ball, which is different than most sports. Okay. Lawrence Dumont Stadium was built by the WPA. Okay? And here in Wichita, we have a really interesting history of baseball. They started hosting the National Baseball Congress. I think it's been 80-some years now that we've had the NBC. This was 2001, and that was the 67th in 2001, so we're up to, that's 17 to 67. 84? 85? Okay, so 85 years they've been holding that tournament down at Lawrence Dumont Stadium. Okay? And it's kind of a neat tradition of Wichita. Okay? When I moved here in 95, December 95, I didn't know anybody, but I knew baseball, and I was like, oh, wow, they have this big tournament every summer. And it's really cheap, and you can go for free some days. Yeah. I'm sorry? No, if they build the new stadium the right way, I'm not sad. If they don't do the new stadium the right way, I will be sad. I think it's a kind of a cool idea, but it needs to be more than baseball. I mean, they need to. Have we talked about this? No. Okay, so you guys know McLean that runs right behind right field. Okay, and then you have the river, the Hyatt's right behind it. They need to take out McLean. And they need to put on the river restaurants, bars, shops, fun stuff. So when you go down to the ball game, it's an event. You go down at 5 o'clock after work, you have dinner, you go to the ballpark for a few innings, and then you're back home, by 9 o'clock. Okay, it's an event. If you just have the baseball stadium and nothing around it, you're going to wind up with what you have now, which is an attendance of, 2,500 a night if you're lucky. You need to get 5,000, 6,000 people down there every night. Make it an event. It's fun. Family. Yeah.
Who's paying for the new stadium?
Oh, we are. The taxpayers. They're talking about anywhere from $40 to $60 million. Now, this is contingent upon us getting an affiliated team. See, the Wingnuts are an independent team. If you think back long enough back in your childhood, you might remember a team called the Wichita Wranglers, which were affiliated with the Kansas City Royals. They were a AA affiliation. Okay? So you had the young guys that were going to be Royals one day coming through and playing. But nobody went to the games. I went to a few. Yeah. But not enough people went. So they left. They built a stadium, a nice stadium in Bentonville, Walmartville in Arkansas, okay, where Walmart's headquartered, and they pack it out. Okay? So the city of Wichita has gone around and looked at different stadiums, minor league stadiums around the country, and which ones do really well. I mean, it's got to be like where there's areas where you can hang out and stand. buy a beer, still watch the game, not go into the concourse, have picnic table areas. And they kind of had that at the Wingnuts, at the Lawrence Dumont, but it needs a different feel to it. And these stadiums that they build for some of these minor league teams are awesome, and they just need to do it right. If they're going to spend $40 to $60 million, you need to do more than just the stadium. It needs to be an event. Yeah.
The 40 to 60 doesn't include maybe like the restaurants on the river or any of that. So is that part of a plan?
Well, look, if you're looking for an opportunity, you have enough money to invest in a restaurant on like a boardwalk near the river by the stadium, you know.
But the city.
I have a problem with the stadium being built by the city, period, because you're using taxpayer money. Now, we should vote on it. We want to have a vote like we did with the Intrust Bank Arena. There was a vote on it, and it passed 51 to 49%. Okay? I voted against it. Why? Are you asking? Anybody? Why did you vote against it, Mr. Ebright? Because I didn't think it was big enough.
Should have made it like 2,000 bigger.
2,000 or 3,000 bigger. That would have been perfect. I think if you're using the floor for seating, like for a concert, I think you can fit in 12? Maybe not quite 12.
But like when we host the March Madness, what are they going to do for that?
Right. I mean, see, it would be easier to get more events like that. I mean, we're getting first round games, but what you want is a Sweet 16, and you're going to need 15,000 minimum to get that. I mean, it's going to be fun, and I hope we support it. I hope we pack it out, because then we'll get it again. So go. I should get tickets too.
My dad bought tickets like last night.
Did he? Yeah. I should probably go support it, but yeah. Okay, so guys, they built stadiums and this sort of stuff all over the country for the Works Progress Administration. Okay, so it kind of have an entertainment feel to it. You know what I mean? It's a baseball stadium. Let's build it for the community and so forth. Good. All right. Now, if we don't get the AAA, we're looking at a AA or AAA team. Rumor is it's AAA Texas Rangers, but we don't know that for sure. And if we don't get that, then they're not going to build a stadium. If we don't get an affiliated team. But here's the thing: the Wingnuts, which is an independent team, has outdrawn the Wranglers, which is an affiliated team for Kansas City. So we'll see. But AAA baseball, you get to see some really good players. I mean, AA too. AA is usually where they send those rising stars. AA, and a lot of them will just skip AAA and go to the major leagues. AAA is kind of like those guys you know, they're good players, but they're just not quite to that major league level. You don't want to cut them loose, so you let them play AAA. Those guys get to fly in airplanes. AA guys have to ride buses, long bus trips, and they don't make hardly any money. You know, minor league baseball is a tough life. Recommended movie for that. If you want to witness that kind of experience. Bull Durham. Bull Durham. Okay. It's rated R.
You might be too easy of a movie critic because you say every movie's good.
Only the good ones. Yeah.
Why didn't you just teach movie music?
I used to.
Oh, really?
Yeah. I got tired of students not. I don't know. I think the quality of student I was getting, I was like, I'm not having any fun with this group.
You're very specific with it.
Yeah, and War and Peace was really a struggle this year. I had some,
Last semester? Oh.
I had some issues in there. Current events right now is going pretty good, I think. I don't know. I'm having a hard time getting a feel for some of the kids.
I took it with Miss Loveless.
Uh-huh.
I just wish that instead of just moving into next movie, we sat and talked about it.
Uh-huh.
Because we kind of just got a worksheet, watch a movie, next one.
Yeah. And I think for a while she's made it kind of like labor intensive too. And I told her, I said, you need to knock that off. And she's creating work for herself. I'm like, I'm not doing that with War and Peace in my current events class. There's not a lot of work in there because I've got enough to grade. All right, the NYA. Don't want to forget the young people, right? The National Youth Administration helped guys like this one over here. This man on the left was able to attend Boise Junior College by teaching a class in the art of self-defense at the local YMCA. Dig the boxer shorts. Okay. And then you have some nurses over here getting, training in nursing through the National Youth Administration. It really is quite wonderful. It's almost a utopia. Okay, the dilemma. Okay, so this cartoon here, you got Hopkins, work relief, industry, already paying for the dole. Congress says, step aside, boys, I'll handle this as the national budget sails away. How are you going to pay for all this stuff? Okay. Here's some workers, public works or works progress building. They did a lot of things here. Put people to work. Okay. Here's the USS Yorktown that was built by the Public Works Administration. Milwaukee County Courthouse. This is still standing today. It's kind of a philosophical thing here, okay, guys? You've got a situation where you have a 25% unemployment. You have millions of able-bodied people that want to work that can't work, okay? And so what the government is doing here is trying to help people by giving them jobs. Economists debate this. Did this bring us out of the Depression? Most would say no. Did it help people? Did it protect us from slipping into something more radical? Because, guys, what we have here is democratic malaise. What we have here is a failure of democracy and capitalism. It busted in 1929. And so people are looking for more radical ideas to get us out of this situation. So some people would credit Roosevelt. Think of it this way. Yes, is this socialism? Absolutely. But some would credit it prevented us from slipping into a worse situation where we might do something really crazy like communism. Okay? And so that one day when this ended, we could revitalize ourselves again with capitalism. Okay? So it's a philosophical debate over the New Deal that historians and economists have been having for 50, 60 years now, debating this. Okay? This is, some would say, somewhat of a Band-Aid, that it does help people, but it's not going to get us out of the Depression. Okay? So you guys can kind of think about this how you want. My dad, he didn't like Roosevelt, but most Americans did. As evidence, he was elected 4 times. Okay? So my dad would have been in the minority on that. All right? So kind of view this however you want. But do it intellectually, honestly, and look at both sides of this. Okay? And I think Lauren's about ready for lunch. So Roosevelt's going to get criticized from both sides. But tomorrow we're going to read an article. And then I think next week, Wednesday, will probably be a video day. I think I'm headed to Topeka. State legislature is having a committee hearing on Convention of the States, and I'm going to go lend my support.